All of you are invited as part of OI. Volunteers, leaders, speakers of the movement. So Pip went rogue and planned this event by ourselves, because we are revolutionary.
Hi, this is Tatsu with Araquel Bloss of PIP, Progressive Independent Party. We just concluded the summit for Sunday's events at Occupy Inauguration. Araquel is the lead organizer, so we just thought we'd spend a little time with her, catch up with her, see how you felt, how the whole weekend went, actually.
It's been just a strange, emotional weekend. I know we're all very tired, so I think it's going to take a few days to absorb and then think ahead. But I think we all need to rest a little bit. But it's been an exceptional weekend. I believe we lifted the voices up of the people we really hope to lift up. I think we made our call for unity in the show of the people that we had as speakers at our rallies and the joining of DJ 20 March to our march. Every time we could show the face of unity and walk the talk, we did, and the summit was just kind of the icing on the cake.
What is our format? What brings us together? How do we get the different, how do we all get into orbit together? And how do we do that in a way that doesn't just throw away the battles that we've already been fighting as independent third parties? Because guess what? You can form a new one, and the same predators are coming after you.
Hi, this is C from Real Progressives, and we are at the conclusion of the Occupy Inauguration Summit. I'm here with Jill Stein, and there was a lot of conversation about unity, uniting the different progressive groups, really finding ways to take action and to move this coalition forward. Is there some takeaway that you got out of this summit?
Oh yeah, I think the time has come, and people are really raring to go. It felt like people didn't need to be convinced, I think it was kind of a question of what's the strategy going forward and how would this work. And what I kind of heard emerging from this discussion is that we can go a long way by doing stuff on the ground. So like looking to the next event. In fact, this sort of came up in informal discussion kind of after the meeting had concluded. This is the way it usually works. And people were thinking, well, why wait 2 months to have a meeting? Why don't we just start organizing right now for International Women's Day, and let's fight violence against women and against, the LGBTQ community and all the intersectional issues with that, including the rights of indigenous women and immigrant women and Muslim women and women of color. There are so many convergent issues there. Why don't we stand up and let's have a really a loud voice, and let's build on what we did with the Occupy Inauguration. Let's make it bigger.
So I do think that the traditional forms of protest and the traditional forms of activism work, but I think it's important for us to remember that it's a whole basket full of different things. And we kind of get past this idea that just marching around the city, and knocking things over when we're angry, and then talking to each other about how angry we feel and about how much better we deserve, and then going home and sitting on our sofas and saying, yay, we talk down whatever the issue is not going to work. It's got to be coupled with the other forms of activism in our daily lives and in our organizing.
I'm working with a community of people that's growing on the development of an international community based on the principle of Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because you are. So it's focusing on our connection, the connection that we have to each other and to all things, and shifting our culture to one that recognizes that connection, and so that our systems that we build, the way that we deal with each other, and the way that we interact with each other, and with the planet and with things, represents or understands that connection. It's called Ubuntu Nation. And it's been in the development phase or the conception phase for 3 years now, and is moving into the building phase, starting this week, actually. And the building phase is focused on 4 specific projects. One is the building of the framework. So it's a community, right? But that community has to have a framework with which to function. And so one is the building of that framework. Another is the building of the technological resources that will support the community. The third is the launching of an international holiday to end hunger. And then the fourth is the development of a conference that would happen every 6 months, and it would be a goals-oriented conference. So what people would do is pitch ideas for projects that they want support on, or issues that they want to work on. People will come together. They would work on things that would end with tangible goals, benchmarks, things that they will accomplish within the next 6 months that they will be able to measure themselves against and report back on. So it's really just about getting things done.
I'm with Dr. Margaret Flowers, and I understand, in addition to a lot of the work you've done supporting Occupy Inauguration, we're here at the summit.
That's right.
You have a new project that is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, thank you for asking me about that. It's called HOPE. It stands for Health Over Profit for Everyone, because right now our healthcare system, the bottom line is profit for the medical industries, and we want a system where the bottom line is health. So it's actually all designed to improve our health outcomes. And so right now, with the Affordable Care Act under attack, and in fact, one of the first things that Donald Trump did when he entered the White House was to sign an executive order allowing greater leniency to roll back the regulation so insurance companies can cover less and they can charge more, and because he's not even happy with how fast Congress is going on. He wants to accelerate it. So this is absolutely the time for us to be standing up and saying, look, we want to finally solve this healthcare crisis. We want a system that puts people before profits, a national improved Medicare for all healthcare system. And we actually had a similar type of campaign in 2009-2010, where we successfully got single-payer legislation to the floor of the Senate for the first time in the history of the country. And so it was using all of the tools of activism, so not just lobbying, but also direct action and protests in Congress and shutting down insurance companies around the nation. So it's time for us to do that again.
Great. I mean, and this is just another step in your long line of going beyond speeches, going beyond rhetoric, and actually demonstrating change in action. How do people find this organization?
So we should be launching it on January 30th, and it's healthoverprofit.org, and the acronym is HOPE. And it will also be a campaign of our main website, popularresistance.org. So if you follow popularresistance.org, you'll find the launch of it there.
Great, and we hope to do a follow-up later once that gets going.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, thank you for
Appreciate
all you do.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
I think the message that we want to get across to people is that there are many different avenues, many different ways to get into finding a way to fight the struggle, right? To stick with the fight and to make the changes that we need to make. So what I found exciting in being on both Friday and on Saturday was watching how one group eventually merged and they all became sort of one thing, right? Which was one, and then watching the Women's March, or men or women or people from different races, different classes, different cultures, all coming together, and people for one of the first times in a long time just walking through the streets speaking to each other. Right? We didn't have to know the other person, but we knew that we had a common thread that we were there for, right? right?
Okay.
And I think that's the key, is the common thread, is that where do we all connect? We don't all, again, have to agree on everything, but where are the places that we connect and how can we work together to build power?
I'd never been involved in politics before 2016. You know? It's a daunting process. There's a lot to learn. We need to make sure that those with experience don't look down on the lack of awareness about how these issues work and how we approach politics and how we approach activism. We need to enable each other. We need to be there and offer the wisdom and experience to make sure that we can grow together and work together into the future.
The coalition started as a entirely communications-led infrastructure because we realized that delegates for Bernie Sanders from across the country were often left out of the loop. They may not have been told where they were staying, or transportation not having been sorted out. And so we wanted to make sure that not only were we in communication with one another, but we also had access to all of the grassroots activity that was going on before the convention. When we got to the convention itself, that's when we realized, the Podesta emails had just come out, and we had just seen the pageantry of the platforms committee. Right. And then so, of course, there's just a simmering frustration. It was at that point when we had a last-minute group meeting the day before the convention started, and we had talked to everyone, and our, the representatives from each of the 57 delegations were, everyone from teachers to attorneys to even a federal judge was amongst us, and we said, is anybody else game for civil disobedience? And not a single person had an issue with it. So we were very happy to have this communications network turned into something a little bit more active. And on Tuesday, after the roll call vote, we turned what could have been a soul-crushing experience, having put so much time and energy into the Bernie Sanders campaign, into the most cohesive, motivation-building event. And I think this really fed into why so many of us were able to keep these networks strong, go back home, and continue building, get involved in our local communities, and continue to change the way that we interact with politics.
Excellent. Can you tell our audience how we get more information about the coalition?
Yes, you can feel free to find information at the coalition57.org. Also check us out on Facebook, the Coalition, and we look forward to having much more interactions as we start to continue to enable grassroots communities from around the country.
Excellent. Thank you for all your work you did during the DNC and now after.
We did it together.
Absolutely.
So this is where I think you all, through your work, definitely help amplify what we do on the media side of things, because through your work and touching people you touch on the ground, through your organization's outreach, engagement, just talking to people offline, that helps spread the word that, hey, there's a real deal out there that you're not seeing because it's not on your TV.
Big takeaways, I think, having, covered, many of the events around Inaugurate Resistance, as well as the Women's March yesterday, looking at the juxtaposition of the two different basically organizing bodies, right? That clearly was a very large, outpouring of people who showed up. But just the sheer overall lack of diversity, I think, in participants, not those on the stage. I think the stage and the planners and the organizers did a really good job of making sure that there are many things that were
in the Women's March?
No, in the Women's March. In terms of the Women's March. No, in the Women's March.
Right.
So, thank you for the clarification. I think that there was an attempt to compensate, make up for initial strategic missteps in terms of that area, but I don't think that trickled down well enough in the actual local organizing and getting people out to the event. I don't think that was felt. I think conversely, in terms of, the work by PIP and Araquel and other groups that came together to plan, the Inaugurate Resistance, this whole weekend of events, I really do think that there's not just an attempt to do so. It seems that it's at the core, making sure there is that diverse reflection of not just, different groups of people, but also different ideas, different backgrounds, and different organizational representation. So I really do like the model of organizing, coalition building, and engagement that I've seen. And Araquel just did a great job, along with everyone else who helped her to pull this all off.
We, the people-powered progressives, aren't there. That space is going to be hijacked, if you will, by the same old, and we're going to see the Democratic Party apologist groups kind of coming in to say we are the alternative to Trump. But in fact, remember that most people who voted for Donald Trump were actually voting against Hillary Clinton, and that this fix that we're in is a two-party catastrophe. It's not just that, oh, those bad Republicans. It's also those Democrats that abandoned working people and women and seniors and millennials locked in debt, and gave rise to mass incarceration with the omnibus crime bill thanks to the Clintons, and offshored our jobs thanks to the trade agreements, again thanks to Democrats with Barack Obama trying to push that forward, and so on. This is a bipartisan problem. This is a problem of the corporate hijack of our democracy. So this is a time for us to, I think, not get hung up on our labels and on our particular organizations. We got to build trust. We got to build experience, and I think we got to be clear about who we are. And in my view, that line gets drawn by who's funding you.
Well, I was glad to hear of the Greens' willingness to kind of open their doors and continue the conversation. I know these coalition building processes don't happen overnight. I know they are not easy because Occupy Inauguration was, in fact, a coalition effort. And we did have David Cabo Vigil's Stein Baraka campaign. We had SA. We had various members of the coalition. So I can tell you it's not easy. Very not easy. But what we did learn in the process of building that coalition is that when you disagree with something politically, that's not a time to give up. But we don't have to be the same to find very, very important things in common. And as long as we continue to find those commonalities, we can easily unite. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned is don't quit when you have a political disagreement. I mean, allow people to have their differences. If we keep being like litmus tests with people in the left purity tests, we're never going to unite, we're never going to impact change, and our country needs us to do better.
If you are being funded either by corporations, lobbyists, or corporate surrogates, because like in presidential elections you cannot contribute corporate money, but the CEOs of corporations can certainly contribute. So for us in the Green Party, that is the standard. You can't take money from corporations, from their surrogates, that is their CEOs, or their lobbyists. That's how we ensure that we are serving the interests of everyday people and not our corporate masters. And if that's kind of where we define ourselves, let's just get to work and let's let the formal things follow. But another thing we can do is start running for office right now. We need all of us to run for office, and Greens have routinely shared their ballot line with others who kind of share our commitment to radical and progressive politics that is independent of corporate money and related dirty lobbyist money. So, I think it's both things. It's building the movements on the ground, being visible, working together to do that, and then working together to get people elected, especially at the local level. That's where we need to do work right now.
We need to be working more cohesively, and we need to be working more intersectionally. And Ubuntu Nation provides a mechanism to help that happen, to help people. I mean, there's the reality right now, not only that we have people working on different issues, but we have people working on the same issues in different places that are completely disconnected from each other. And so this is one of the things that will be addressed through that. Then there's also just the reality of how we think about things, and and transforming that, decolonizing each other, decolonizing ourselves, just educating ourselves, so that we grow, thinking about things like what is race and how real is race, because we receive these constructs and we don't question them because we're told these things from our childhood, and and so just beginning to question things, to be more critical, even if you come to the same conclusion, you come to the conclusion based on knowledge and thought, and not just because it was given to you.
In addition to speaking across the aisle in terms of the progressive movement, there was a lot of discussion about speaking not just to the choir, and speaking to some of these other groups that aren't aligned with the progressive movement at all. Can you speak just briefly on that?
Yeah, I mean, in my view, it's like half of people didn't come out to vote, roughly.
Right.
And it's those people who don't know that there is a voice for them. One of the general rules of thumb in organizing is that you don't want to waste a lot of time talking to people who already agree with you. You don't want to waste a lot of time talking to people who vehemently disagree with you. But it's everybody in the middle, and it's especially oppressed groups who haven't had a voice for them.
It's the playbook from the grassroots strategy, right? It's that you've got to have open conversations like the one that was held this afternoon. You've got to have small conversations in neighborhoods, in living rooms, in bars, in clubs, in businesses, barbershops, hair salons, wherever, schools, wherever you can have the conversation about the important issues, and recognizing that it's not about coming to agreement, it's coming to understanding. And that's the bait. When we understand where we're all coming from, then we can develop a strategy from there on how to move forward together. But as long as we're expecting, if we come together, we need to walk out with an agreement, then you're going to always have trouble, because we may not agree on all aspects of it. But where do we have that? Again, the common thread, the common ground, that's what's important. So these small meetings, small groups, it's the personal touch that you and I have when we have a conversation, and maybe there's a couple others of us there. It's not this big rally march speaking to a whole hundreds of people.
It's the Black Lives Matter community, but it's also those who haven't been even engaged in the Black Lives Matter community. It's the felons, it's people who've been disenfranchised. It is people who are struggling to keep their homes, people who are fighting to maintain their public schools, whose schools are being shut down, whose kids are being forced to get on public transportation and find their way to a school, an hour away. Or maybe they're lucky enough to get bused, but, whose lives are being thrown into absolute chaos and disarray. It's the seniors, who've been historically democratic, but who've been thrown under the bus. It's especially millennials and Gen Xers who are in debt, who either couldn't afford to go to college in the first place, or who are locked in debt. And at the local level even, we can be advocating. You could be running for city council based on your going to the legislature in your state and saying, we need to get rid of our tuition for our public colleges. We need to provide higher education, public higher education, as a human right. So there are many ways that we can engage those disenfranchised voters who are essentially progressive voters the minute they are engaged and mobilized and respected. We got to go out and talk to them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We look forward to speaking to you more later. This is C with Real Progressives with Jill Stein. Thank you once again.
Thank you, C.
So we need to unify as progressives so that we can even reach over the aisle, reach not just people on the coast, but in the middle. So towards the end of today's proceedings, we're talking as a group, everyone who attended, about the next organizing meeting. And I just overheard you talking with Jill, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. What are your thoughts right now?
Well, I had planned on, suggesting 6 months and just hoping to get some vows to participate. When people started kind of hollering out 3 months, 2 months, and it just shows you that we, the people, want to unite, the movements want to unite, they want to help each other. And so we agreed on 2 months, which means I gotta start working again. But Jill just told me that they were speaking while I was during an interview, and they decided they want to start working immediately on the next movement. It may not be a summit, but we need to unite to show our numbers in the streets, and that's what's going to happen next.
All right. Well, Araquel, thank you so much for this weekend and today. Very, very enlightening. I could go on at length for it, but I'll let you get on with the organizing. And we appreciate everything you've done, and hope to see you on RP soon.
Yes, thank you. Real Progressives, they're a great partner to PIP, and we've been, Steve Grumbine was on the National Steering Committee of Occupy Inauguration, so thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
All right, have a good weekend.
Bye.